Random House Audio presents Healthy Aging, a lifelong guide to your physical and spiritual well-being. This is the author, Andrew Weil, MD. Introduction. Recently, I turned 60. To help celebrate the occasion, friends organized a surprise party for me. After the festivities, there came a time to reflect, and when I did, I came to an uncomfortable conclusion. I am closer to a time when my energy and powers will diminish, when I will lose my independence. 60 is about the time that organs of the body begin gradually to fail, when the first hints of age-related disease begin to appear. I hardly notice my aging on a day-to-day basis, but if I pay attention, I can notice changes in my body, more aches and pains, less vigor, and my memory may not be quite what it used to be. At the same time, some part of me feels unchanged, in fact feels the same as when I was 6. Some years ago I went to my 25th high school reunion. I had not seen most of my classmates since our graduation in 1959. A few of them were just as I remembered them. Others looked so aged that I could barely find points of coincidence with the pictures of them I had in my head. Why are some individuals so outwardly altered by time and others not? Why is there often a discrepancy between chronological age and biological age? I believe that the answer has to do with complex interactions of genetics and environment. I also believe that we have control over some of those factors. I do not subscribe to the view that aging suddenly overtakes us at some point in life, whether at 60 or some other milestone. I meet researchers, physicians, and others who believe that we are born, grow rapidly to maturity, and then coast along on a more or less comfortable plateau until we begin to decline. They call the period of decline senescence, and consider it distinct and apart from what came before. If one looks only at the physical aspects of life, especially on the cellular level, this is a plausible view. Cells from old organisms are different from cells of young ones, and observations about how they differ are the basis of biogerontology, the new science of the biology of aging. It is biogerontologists who promote the idea that aging is a programmed phase of decline following the plateau of maturity. In their view, senescence is a discrete phase of cellular life coincident with loss of the cell's ability to divide. Senescent cells can still perform many of the functions of life, but they cannot reproduce. By contrast, when cells turn malignant, they often become immune to senescence. Cell biologists refer to this change as immortalization. It is one of the most curious and important characteristics of cancer. It points to an equally curious and important possibility about aging, namely that the mechanics of aging in cells may have evolved as defenses against cancer. Malignant growth may be immortal at the cellular level, but it has the potential to disable and kill entire organisms before they can pass on their genes and contribute to the survival and evolution of the species. For life to continue, prevention of malignant growth must be a priority. I find it more useful to think of aging as a continuous and necessary process of change that begins with conception. Wherever you are on the continuum of aging, it is important to learn about how to live in appropriate ways in order to maximize health and happiness. I do not believe aging to be reversible. The hard fact is that aging will bring unpleasant changes, among them aches and pains, decreased vigor, healing ability, sensory acuity, muscle tone, bone density, and sexual energy, memory deficits, wrinkles, loss of beauty, friends, family, and independence, increased reliance on doctors and pills, and social isolation. We can mask the outward signs of the process or try to keep up old routines in spite of it, but we cannot change the fact that we are all moving toward physical decline and death. The best we can do, and it is a lot, is to accept this inevitability and try to adapt to it, to be in the best health we can at any age. To my mind, the denial of aging and the attempt to fight it are counterproductive. To age gracefully means to let nature take its course while doing everything in our power to delay the onset of age-related disease. Furthermore, I believe that aging brings rewards as well as challenges and losses. Yes, aging can bring frailty and suffering, but it can also bring depth and richness of experience, complexity of being, serenity, wisdom, and its own kind of power and grace. It is as desirable to accept aging as it is to take any other steps to improve your health throughout your life. To age gracefully requires that we learn and practice what we have to do to keep our bodies and minds in good working order through all the phases of life. Part 1. The Science and Philosophy of Healthy Aging. 1. Immortality. Our attitudes toward aging and our responses to the changes in appearance that aging brings are totally colored by our knowledge that we are moving inexorably toward death. We all sense the finiteness of life, and we all fantasize about living forever. Is it any wonder, then, that we put so much effort into denying the fact of our aging with cosmetics, plastic surgery, and verbal deceits? You look so much younger. And why are we so enthralled by proponents of anti-aging medicine who tell us that we can stop or even turn back the clock? Immortality is an alluring concept, but I wonder how many of us have thought through its meaning and implications. If you lived beyond the normal human lifespan, what would your life be like? I invite you to look at immortality with me through the lens of biology. Let's start with immortality on the cellular level. Until 1961, researchers believed that normal cells taken from the body and grown in laboratories should be able to grow and divide forever if they were provided with a constant supply of food and if their waste products were removed. In that year, Leonard Hayflick and Paul Moorhead at the Wistar Institute in Philadelphia demonstrated that this was not so, that all normal cells have a fixed limit on the number of times they can divide in order to replace themselves. This number is now known as the Hayflick limit. It turns out that the Hayflick limit varies from species to species and often correlates with lifespan. With a Hayflick limit of about 50 cell divisions, humans are the longest-lived mammals. Mice, which live about 3 years, have a limit of 15 divisions. For chickens, with an average lifespan of 12 years, the number is about 25. At the extreme of longevity, the Galapagos tortoise, which can live for 175 years, has a Hayflick limit of 110. HeLa cells, however, can divide indefinitely. They do not senesce. They continue to grow and divide as long as they have nutrients, oxygen, space, and means of getting rid of their wastes. HeLa cells were the first human cells to be successfully cultured outside the body in large numbers. Given their longevity, they revolutionized biological and medical research. HeLa cells ignore the Hayflick limit for human cells. In a sense, they are immortal. I was taught that HeLa was composed of the initial letters of the name of a woman, Helen Lane, who was said to be the original source of the cells. This turns out not to have been true. The real source was Henrietta Lacks, a poor African-American woman from Baltimore, whose story only came out years after her cells were growing in prodigious numbers everywhere. Lacks was born to a family of tobacco pickers in Virginia, moved to Baltimore in 1943 at the age of 23, married, and had 5 children in quick succession. Then early in 1951, she noticed she had abnormal vaginal bleeding. She went to a clinic at the Johns Hopkins Hospital, where a doctor found a quarter-sized tumor on her uterine cervix. He biopsied it and sent the tissue sample off for diagnosis. It was malignant. Shortly afterward, Lacks returned to the clinic to begin radium treatments. But before the first one, another tissue sample from the tumor was taken and sent this time to George Guy, head of tissue culture research at Johns Hopkins. Guy, with his wife Margaret, had been trying to find human cells that would grow well outside the body. His greater goal was to study cancer in order to find a cure. Henrietta Lacks's biopsy gave him exactly what he needed. Her cancer cells grew in test tubes as no other cells had ever grown, vigorously and aggressively. Of course, this did not augur well for their donor. Within months, Lacks's tumor had metastasized throughout her body, creating tumors in all of her organs until she expired painfully in a racially segregated ward of the Johns Hopkins Hospital on October 4, 1951, 8 months after the diagnosis. On the same day, George Guy went on national television to announce his breakthrough in cancer research. HeLa cells were soon in great demand. The Guys sent vials of...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?